I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. Week 2 is officially in the books. We are moving on to Week 3 as soon as we recap the Monday Night Football game between the Lions and the Packers. Matt, how are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday? Uh-oh.
Doing pretty good if I remember to unmute myself. We're just exchanging mute issues this morning.
It's Felix. I think he's rubbing off on everybody at the network now.
Well, Aaron Jones, man, he was a pure delight. Pulled me over the finish line in Scott Fishbowl. Pulled me over the finish line in a couple of other places. Thank you, Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are either saying thank you or F you right now because he cost a lot of people a win from what I've heard as well. His monster night, which we will get into here in just a minute, really helped a lot of people and obviously hurt some people as well who was probably going into today like 30 points. I'm good. Aaron Jones ain't going to do that. They were wrong.
There was in my work league where there's always a lot of trash talking and competitiveness. Guy went into last night down 88 points, had Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and Devontae Adams. He won by like 5 or 6.
Wow. That's got to be something like you relish forever. So we are going to break down that Monday Night Football game between the Lions and the Packers, and then we are going to give you guys our waiver wire targets here after week 2, heading into week 3. We usually do our rankings, what we messed up on and what we got right. We will do that on tomorrow's episode, as Matt and myself will be back tomorrow to preview the Thursday Night Football game as well. So let's jump in and talk about that Monday Night Football game. The Packers beat the Lions 35-17, and let's start with the Lions side here. Quintez Cephus looked great last night. Matt, has he become the go-to wide receiver for Jared Goff?
Yeah, I mean, he got a touchdown in week 1, which was somewhat encouraging. We talked about after week 1, they used a lot of different receivers, and you were waiting to see if one would distinguish themselves. Tyrell Williams was out, so you don't know if his return will alter the equation, but Cephus, 7 targets, had the most of wide receivers, second most of any receivers out there in the package, caught 4 for 63 and another touchdown. He's one of the few guys who was in this Lions receiving room last year too, so maybe pick some stuff up and is ready for a bigger role. I am interested in getting him. Amon-Ra St. Brown saw 5 targets, had a decent night too. They did use some other guys, but it looks like Cephus is kind of getting a little traction, has gotten touchdowns in consecutive weeks, saw his target share go up. Those are all encouraging signs as we thought someone would emerge from this receiver room.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk a little bit more about him as he is not rostered in a whole lot of places right now. So he may be a guy that a lot of people are going to spend their money on. The Lions, for the most part, actually seem like they're a very decent team. They hung in this game for the most part early on. It was really kind of toward the end of the third quarter that the Packers kind of started separating themselves. They went and had, I think, scored like 17 unanswered points in this game. But the Lions look good in the first half. Jared Goff has been decent, I guess probably what we expected. Maybe not as bad as we all thought he was going to be, but definitely maybe not as good as the Lions hoped he would be in trading for him. Not sure if that was more of just just trying to get somebody in here as they get ready for the Sam Howell train next year. I don't know who Felix really wants them to draft, but Sam Howell I think would be very good for this team. Are you worried at all about Swift? Because the Packers defense was not great week 1, and I felt like they did a pretty good job of locking him up in this one. Now, he did come in supposedly dealing with an injury, so maybe that has some to do with it here, but are you worried at all about Swift?
I mean, he got the most carries on the team. It was only one more than Williams. We got the most carries, 4.6 yards a carry. They were behind a lot, so they probably weren't going to run the ball a lot. He saw 5 targets, which was third most on the team, caught 4 of them for 41. A lot of them did come kind of late in the drive, but 8.1, but he gets you around 12 points PPR. Could be worse.
Yeah. As a little, I guess, just a shock to the system to see that Jared Goff led the whole team in rushing. You would think that Swift would hopefully do a little bit better, but as you mentioned, adding 41 yards. Go ahead.
Goff did lead them in rushing, but he had a 26-yard kind of broken play run. That's going to skew things. The Lions just don't look like they didn't look like they were trying to run a lot after they got down kind of early. And then it was a weird game flow, I thought, in general.
Yeah, again, to get you 12 points in a game like that, I think is probably good for Swift. I'm starting to regret not keeping him in one of my big money leagues. The keeper league, I could have had him in the 4th round. I kept Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd. It is only 2 weeks in, so I don't want to panic too much, but I am a little bit, like this much.
I think I'd be more worried had Jamal Williams gotten a much larger share. Williams had fewer carries, had fewer targets, had fewer receptions. If he was not getting you a big game and somebody else was taking a lot of work, I think problem is they're probably both going to get work. And if you have a game like last night where there isn't a ton of targets and carries, then you're splitting a much smaller pie.
On the Packers side, it looks like they bounced back in a major way. Aaron Rodgers had a good game, 22 for 27, 255 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But Aaron Jones is the man of the hour here. As you mentioned at the beginning there, 4 touchdowns in this one. He had 67 on the ground with a touchdown, and then 3 receiving touchdowns with 48 yards on 6 catches. I mean, Aaron Jones is back. We keep every year talking about he's got to regress a little bit in touchdowns, right? I feel like he's already back on par to score a ton of touchdowns. He's going to be a top running back again this year. I mean, if anybody panicked after week 1, I really hope you didn't sit him or trade him, but what a game from Aaron Jones.
Yeah, it really looks like the one that's about to regress in touchdowns is Adams, who had 18 last year, has 0 through 2 games. Aaron Jones, he still has 15 games left on the season, already has 4 touchdowns. You figure by accident he's bound to get at least 6 more, which gives him double digits. But that is, it's for a long time in that game, there were only 3 people that had recorded stats aside from Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, and then you see Tanyan. Tanyan continues to be incredibly efficient. Only saw 3 targets, caught all 3 for 52 yards and a touchdown. MVS, we had seen the previous week get 10 targets. Only got 4 yesterday. Didn't record a single reception. So it's really, to me, it's really Jones and Adams and Rodgers. And then given the state of the tight end position, you could be worse than throwing out Tanyan. But those guys are going to continue to produce and put up package.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about Devontae Adams here, a lot of people complaining about him not getting a touchdown. I mean, imagine being upset the wide receiver got 8 catches for 121 yards. I think that just speaks to how good Devontae Adams is and the expectations he has set for all of the people who roster him is just you're expecting more, and yet he still went out there and had a massive day. I think Adams is going to be fine. Looked good. Aaron Rodgers had that one beautiful bomb to him down the sideline. They definitely were trying to get him involved in the game. I was, I'll channel my inner Dennis here and say that I was, surprised how much they were trying to get MVS involved as well. They went to him a lot, and yet they really couldn't connect on it. But I do think that's, a good thing for if you're an MVS, if you have MVS on any of your rosters, that they were really trying to get him involved in this game.
Yeah. And he had 10 targets the week before in what was kind of a garbage game. So he's got 14 targets. That's a good sign. It seems like he and Randall Cobb kind of have distance. It's the shocking one to me. I don't think Lazard's been out injured.
No, he was in the, because I saw him
seem to be a focus either week.
Yeah.
And then AJ Dillon, who we thought was going to be in for a big share, looks like the missing man formation right now.
Yeah, Dillon, I'm not as worried for Dillon. I think just because of how bad week 1 was. And then when you have a guy like Aaron Jones going off the way he does, I don't think you sit him. I think you kind of ride the hot hand, and he was on fire last night. Now, Lazard was there because I saw him at halftime go up and give Jamal Williams a hug. Because they were showing like a bunch of the Packers players going up and talking to Jamal. So he was there. I was trying to see. I've got it pulled up. So he didn't even get targeted.
No.
So I don't know if maybe he was hurt, but he was in uniform. He had everything on when he went and talked to Jamal. So,
but they only threw it 27 times, and 18 of those were to Jones, Adams, and Tanyan. For a long time, those were the only 3 that had any recorded stats. They weren't even targeting other people. Cobb, a lot was made of his celebrating his big return. We haven't really seen a huge factor. MVS, they do seem to be targeting, haven't really connected. But aside from that, it's not a lot out there.
That is correct. And so, folks, since I am a big dumb animal, I forgot to tell you guys that we are proud to be a part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. They've got a ton of great other podcasts on there. You can see the logo right up there to I can't even point right. I'm done pointing. But it's up here at the top of our stream if you're watching live. They have a ton of great podcasts. Football, baseball, hockey, fantasy, soccer, everything. Check them out. They are a great network, and we are very proud to be a part of them.
And speaking of being part of them, we are now proud to be partnering up with DraftKings. Week 2 of football is in the books, and so it's time to kind of review the tape and get ready for week 3 with the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed week, DraftKings is giving new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. Listen up, because you don't want to miss this. Head to the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and place a bet of $1 on any week 3 game to receive $150 free in free bets instantly. If Sportsbook is not yet available in your state, DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes on their first deposit. Now, this is the most important part. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code TPPN to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code TPPN, the Pigskin Podcast Network, at the DraftKings Sportsbook, and the official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania residents only, new customers only. A minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager is required per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details.
All right, and we are definitely happy to be working with DraftKings as well. We will talk a little bit more probably about some DFS stuff on our Friday episodes. Let's talk about waiver wires, or waiver targets, I should say, for week 2. We'll start with the quarterback position. Matt, I mentioned this yesterday. Probably much to all of our surprise, Teddy Bridgewater has attempted the most passes over 20 yards, made a joke that he probably hasn't completed most of them, but he's still making the attempts at least. And that is all that matters. You got to shoot your shot, right? If you don't shoot your shot, you have no chance in completing it. Right now, he is sitting at 15.8% rostered, as well as Taylor Henneke, who is at 3%. What are your thoughts on these two QBs? Let's attack it from a single QB and a super flex league.
Yeah, so I think Superflex Bridgewater needs to be rostered. He's shown no signs he's going away. They got the Jets this week. I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm sure you haven't done your rankings yet. I just did mine today. I have him as QB 15 for the week. I think he's a super flex start. He's taking shots deep. Cortland Sutton looks good. Fance looking good. They have Tim Patrick looking good. They have KJ Hamler looking good. They've seemed to be throwing a lot more than running, which I think is a surprise to both of us, especially given the quality of their running backs. But he should definitely be on. Heineke's probably a guy I'm rostering in Superflex as well. If you're in a 1 QB league, I would roster Bridgewater because I think, we're about to come to bye weeks. We've seen a spate of injuries the last few weeks. I could see rolling him in there. In fact, in a couple of my 1 QB redraft leagues, a guy did end up starting Bridgewater because a couple of his other quarterback options kind of faded. That would be a matchup play. I don't know if I'm rostering Heineke in a 1 quarterback league. Superflex I am. I still think probably this week he's a high-end QB3. He has QB2 potential. I thought he looked good week 1. I think they're going to want to run more. Buffalo is no joke. They're at home again. They've been pretty good. Even Big Ben didn't do that well against them. Nobody for Miami had anything to write home about. So it'll probably be a more conservative game this week.
Yeah, Bridgewater, I'm 100% on board with you. In a 1 QB league, I don't know if I'm starting him. I guess it depends on who else you drafted because I don't know how often he finishes as like a top 12 quarterback. But if you punted quarterback, I've seen on a couple waiver wires that I'm really only in 2 redraft leagues, but in both of them, not only was Teddy Bridgewater, but so was Daniel Jones. I'm taking Daniel Jones over Teddy, but that's just because of the rushing upside. But I'm with you. They are passing the ball a whole lot more than any of us thought they were. And that definitely gives him some value, especially if those guys continue to convert those catches. If Sutton continues to look as good as he has, Fant had a really good game this past week as well. So, and in Superflex, I think he is a smash start. For Heineke, I'm definitely picking him up in a Superflex league because having that other or that third quarterback matters, but I'm with you. I'm not starting him unless I have to. I'm in a couple of leagues that have Scott Fishbowl scoring where I started Zach Wilson. With his negative 14 points. I might start Heineke over Zach Wilson most weeks because I actually think he's got a little bit of safer floor than what Wilson has.
Davis Mills or over Jacob Eason, guys who are all likely to be starters this week over at Jameis Winston. Quarterback, we're only in week 3. There are some unappealing options on the bottom end.
Yeah. It's getting rough out there, folks, already. It's and again, as you mentioned, it's only week 3. So Heineke, I think, is more of like a safe play. He's never going to really like blow you away, but he doesn't really turn the ball over that much as well. So I think he is a very safe option to play at quarterback in 2 QB leagues. I am definitely picking him up and just holding on to him in case I need him for a start. Running back, we've got 3 options here. 2 very interesting. One, J.D. McKissick at 35.5%, Cordero Patterson at 11.5%, and then Peyton Barber at 6.8%.
Yeah, you can't sell me on Peyton Barber. I know
I'm with you.
Josh Jacobs is supposedly supposed to be out again. Kenyon Drake didn't get a ton of carries, but at least is getting passing game work. The way the Raiders are playing, I think they might just punt the rush game altogether again. The best case scenario, Peyton Barber rolls to like 8 to 10 points for you. I don't really see him necessarily getting a touchdown. That would be a miracle. Patterson and Mckissick are interesting just because of their roles. McKissick seems to be kind of a 2-minute drill, hurry-up offense guy. He seems to still have the same kind of passing role he had last year. He had good chemistry with Heineke. I think he is in that, RB3 flex consideration. I moved him up quite a bit this week from where I've had him the last couple of weeks based on what we saw on Thursday night. And Cordero Patterson, I don't know if I think he's incredible, but obviously Arthur Smith does. Dude got a couple of touchdowns. He's getting consistently carries and opportunities in the passing game, which gives him, I still am not as bullish. I have him in the RB4 range, but he definitely is somebody that you could do worse.
Yeah, I think Patterson is worth picking up, but as I mentioned on yesterday's episode, I'm still not out on Mike Davis being the guy. I really don't know that they're going to continue to use Cordero Patterson the way that they did last week. I could be wrong. I'm just they signed Mike Davis for a reason. I do think he's the better overall running back, but Cordero Patterson has obviously a little bit better burst and speed than what Mike Davis has, and he's a little bit better of a receiving back because he's technically a converted wide receiver. So I definitely think he has a role there, but I'm still kind of in on Mike Davis. But you've got to pick him up just based on what we saw last week, knowing who his head coach is and the way that they like to run that offense. You know, McKissick is the guy for me. We saw last year he had a ton of value in that offense, and we all hoped that some of the receiving work he saw last year was going to transition to Antonio Gibson. That has not happened through 2 weeks. It still seems to be McKissick's show. Now, granted, Henneke hasn't really seemed to want to dump off that much, but they were designing plays for McKissick when he was out there. So he's a guy I would definitely pick up, especially if you're hurting at running back with some of the injuries, or if maybe you just kind of punted running back for whatever reason after your top guy, however you handled it. He's definitely a guy, especially in PPR leagues, I would be willing to go. I'd spend a decent amount of fab on him because right now, there's not really anything else good on the waiver wire, and I don't know outside. There's a couple like sleeper guys that I'm thinking about picking up, but that's in deeper leagues, and then you're kind of hoping for an injury. Like with Swift already dealing with an injury, you know, like Jamar Jefferson's on my watch list because I think he could be someone who could be really good with Jamal Williams, but you need one of those guys to get hurt. Jamar's not going to carve out a role with both of those guys there. We don't know what's going on in San Francisco right now. I mean, Sermon's out with a concussion. Hasty's hurt. Jeff Wilson can't come back till week 6, so it might just be – is Elijah Mitchell hurt? I can't remember. Is he fine?
He returned to the game. He dinged up his shoulder, but I expect him to play. I'm hoping Sermon gets cleared too, because beyond that, who is the guy that
Cannon? Trenton Cannon. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're hoping for – I'm right there with you. I mean, that was a bad hit for Sermon. You know, I know a lot of people are giving him crap for fumbling the ball, but dude took like a almost helmet-to-helmet hit and then slammed his face in the ground. I mean, again, I'm not a man. I wouldn't have held on to the ball either. So, you know, it's one of those things where you got to cut some of these guys some slack. That was a pretty vicious hit that he took. At the wide receiver position, Tim Patrick coming in at 17.4, Zach Pascal at 15, KJ Osborne 2.1, and then the guy we mentioned earlier in the episode, Quintez Cephus at 1.8. How are you attacking the wide receivers who are available on the waiver wire?
Yeah, so, you know, Patrick, I think, has looked pretty good. He's gotten touchdown looks in both games. And, you know, we've seen him step up and be valuable before. He's for sure the wide receiver 2 opposite Cortland Sutton right now. I think he should be rostered everywhere. Pascal, another guy, seems to just carve out a role. He's gotten touchdowns each of the first 2 weeks. We can't write him out. He seems to be the wide receiver 2 for the Colts. I still like Pittman a little bit more. Osborne, we talked about it last week, should have probably gotten picked up. 2.1 suggests people didn't jump on that train. He has been very good for Minnesota. They're probably going to be behind a lot. He seems to be getting targets and looks. And then Cephus seems to have jumped into that role of being the top target for now for Detroit. I would roster them all. If I'm putting it in priority order, I'm probably going Patrick, Cephus, Osborne, Pascal. As part of me just cannot totally commit to Zach Pascal, but I also think with Carson Wentz having 2 ankle sprains, I think there's little chance he's playing this week. I think you're getting Jacob Eason, and I really want no part of the passing game with Jacob Eason.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Michael Pittman took a major step forward in last week's game too, but now with Jacob Eason going out there, I'm with you. I don't know that I trust anybody, including, unfortunately, like Jonathan Taylor, which just, it hurts to say that. I like Patrick. I mean, a couple years ago, he was having a really good season for the Broncos. I don't know if I could ever roster. Well, you know what? It wasn't Tim Patrick's fault, so maybe I shouldn't hold it against him. But what was the year that they had Case Keenum as their quarterback? Was that 19, 18?
I think it was 18.
So 2018, I had a chance to go.
Cousins' first year.
Yeah, I had a chance to go for 3 championships in a row, and then Case Keenum decides to throw an interception over the middle. I had Tim Patrick on my team. I needed 0.3 points to win my third championship in a row. It was intercepted, so it's probably more Case Keenum's fault, not Tim Patrick's. But Tim Patrick has been very good for Denver when he has been asked to step up with the injuries. And then obviously KJ Osborne and Cephus have just looked amazing to start off the season. And Osborne's a guy that I think I'm kind of more and more in on because these defenses seem to really be keying in on Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. And if that's the case, Osborne's going to continue to look good because it seems like they have completely gone away from the old Mike Zimmer of wanting to run the ball a ton, and they've actually been passing the ball maybe because their team is just not good and they haven't been in games. I would probably put Cephus and Osborne first and then Tim Patrick, and I'm with you on Pascal last. I can't see it. I refuse, and if I lose because I don't have Zach Pascal on my team, I'm okay with it. Like I can't see it. Patrick, I still think is going to be third in line. Now, maybe I think he's starting in line behind Sutton and Fant. I am encouraged, as we talked about earlier, the fact that Denver is throwing it as much as they are. So maybe he ends up getting that volume. But I think with Cephus likely being the one behind Hockenson, at least the one at the wide receiver position, and then just what Osborne has done the past 2 weeks, I think I'd rather take a shot on one of them. But I'm with you. I'd roster all three if I can, and I'd put them in whatever order you can to get them. I'd be happy with all of them except for Pascal. And he's probably going to end up being the best out of all of them because we just crapped all over him in this segment.
Yeah, Patrick had 4 targets on Sunday, which doesn't sound like a lot, but was actually the third most on Denver. But it's not even just Fant they're using Alberto at tight end. He had 4 targets too. I've been dropping him in my tight end 2 rankings. He had 4 targets in both games, and he's been incredibly efficient. He has 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns, just under 80 yards on 8 targets.
That's actually a lot better than I thought you were about to read. Speaking of the Broncos, since we're here, before we get to the tight ends, did you see the news about Bradley Chubb?
That he hurt his ankle?
He is getting surgery, arthroscopic surgery.
I mean, he looked like he had the smell of a multi-game miss when he came out. So he hurt his ankle. That's why he didn't go week 1. It was tentative about week 2. He went in. He came out pretty early in that game and slammed his helmet on the ground. That is never a good sign to me. But Denver,
it's not.
Their depth is being tested. Ronald Darby went on IR, which already thinned out their corners. It looks like Josie Jewell tore a pec, I think is what they think.
I saw that he's going to be out for the season. So
they get Zach Wilson this week. So I still think 3-0. It's after I always thought Denver was going to start hot because Giants, Jaguars, Jets, and you're talking about Fangio knows how to scheme, and we have some really good defensive players going against, Daniel Jones. I'm going to give credit; looks better than I thought, but going against rookies, and even before Wilson struggled last week, I thought that was going to be good. After that, reality comes home a little bit more. We got the Ravens. I want to see what Denver looks like against the Ravens before I start to get too excited.
Yeah, that could be a very good game. We usually talk about defenses being the get-right game for offenses. Zach Wilson and the Jets are the get-right game for the defense. So, that's a definitely if Denver's defense is on your waiver wire, pick them up this week because they're likely.
I'm ranking them. I'm ranking them as my number 1 defense because Surtain looked really good week 1. They still have Fuller. They have 2 incredible safeties up over the middle. And Von Miller has looked like Super Bowl 50 Von Miller. He has 3 sacks in 2 games, even without Chubb in there.
All right, so last but not least for us today, the tight ends. Pat Freiermuth coming in at 5.8% rostered, and good old Max Williams back from the dead, 0.000001% rostered. How are you attacking the tight ends here?
So Freiermuth is probably more of a pickup in redraft because I find it hard to believe he wouldn't be rostered in Dynasty. He was one of only a couple of tight ends. Seemed like sure bets. What is interesting to me about him is we thought it would still probably be more of an Ebron season, and you might see a passing of the torch like Jimmy Graham to Cole Kmet toward the end of the season. But it already seems like Freiermuth is a bigger part of the offense. Ebron only had 2 targets, no receptions last week. Freiermuth targeted 4 times, more times, caught all 4 passes. Seems like he might be already the tight end to go to in Pittsburgh. Max Williams, I'm picking him up. The state of the tight end is so fungible. I think the first 4 or 5 weeks we're really going to have no idea beyond the top core of guys, and even guys like George Kittle. It's hard to say somebody who's been solidly in the top 10 is a disappointment, but we haven't even seen the highs with him. There's really only 3 guys that are putting up incredible numbers at the tight end position right now. So there's a lot of interest. Max Williams, he got 7 targets, had 7 receptions last week. That, it doesn't take much to move the needle at tight end. So I think he should be rostered. If Freiermuth isn't picked up and you're in Dynasty, you definitely should be grabbing him and thanking somebody for the gift. But Max Williams probably the guy that's more likely to get picked up in every league.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. If I agree with you, if Freiermuth is not rostered in a dynasty league, he needs to be rostered now. That's a big mistake by everybody in your league. I'm going to give Max Williams one more week. I don't know if it was one of those weeks for him that he just kind of went off. I don't trust him one bit. I definitely think Arizona's offense has been off to a great start. So.
Who is trustworthy at tight end? I'm not trying to be me. That's just
I get you.
Tight end is kind of a
I feel
such
like
a fungible position.
I feel like more than likely the tight end you drafted is probably still the better start over Max Williams. And I was looking at stuff today, and I was looking at some of the guys that in the leagues that I've punted tight end a little bit. Like I have Jared Cook in one of them. Like I think I'd still rather start Jared Cook over Max Williams right now. I mean, he had the touchdown called back against the Cowboys. Didn't look bad in week 1 either. Like, I think I'd rather have him over Max Williams. Like, I agree with you. Max Williams could easily be a top 12 tight end all season long because it doesn't take much to get there. I just think I'd rather use if you were to put him up with the rest of the people we just talked about today, he would still probably be my last waiver wire pick. Like, I'd rather have any of those wide receivers, running backs. So,
if you're burning a waiver wire on the tight end position, it's probably because you have a low waiver priority, or the rest of your team's pretty well set. But I mean, I don't see a harm in Ross in the early season going. So, we thought Ferkser was going to be a big target. He didn't do much in week 2, was out in week 1, was out in week 2. Maybe that's a guy I'm dropping to go get a Max Williams or a Jawan Johnson. Adam Troutman was a big popular pickup. In Dynasty, you shouldn't drop him, but if you're in redraft, he doesn't look like he's getting a great consistent target share, so I might rotate away. A lot of people punted on tight end, or if you're in leagues like some of the leagues I'm in with players that maybe aren't like us that spend every waking hour looking at fantasy football, people in those leagues roster 2 and 3 tight ends. So you may be down to some grim options. I couldn't bring myself to take a bunch of tight ends in my work league, but now, if I see a guy like Max Williams and I have a slot, I may stash him because there isn't going to be anything on the wire because people collect positions they feel like they need to have backups.
Yeah. So there's 2 tight ends I see. I'm just kind of looking at different services to see Austin Hooper at 48%. That he might be available in the fact that he's not over 50 that I would probably look at. Then there's another guy, and I feel like I might get you a little bit excited here because he's a guy we both have believed in. He's had 2 very good weeks so far. Dawson Knox at 6%. Would you take him over either one of those in redraft specifically? Because right now he had 6 points in week 1 and 8.7 points in week 2. And I'm pretty sure in week 1 he had a touchdown called back, if I'm remembering correctly, due to a holding call. He got the touchdown last week. I know I saw that. Are we backing on Dawson Knox? Because I kind of feel like Gabriel Davis really hasn't taken that step forward we hoped he would, so it really seems like maybe Dawson Knox is working his way up to the 3. I don't know. I'm starting to talk myself back in to Dawson Knox, and I didn't think I was going to be here, but I kind of am right now.
Yeah, Knox has been really efficient. He only had 3 targets last week. One of them ends up being a touchdown reception, 2 for 17. In Dynasty, I think he should still be rostered. In redraft, I'm putting him, there's potential. Maybe I feel about him like sometimes we felt about Chris Herndon. Like I have wanted him to be good for so long, but we haven't seen consistency that now even when I see bright lights, it's almost like how you feel about Tyler Higbee. Like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I might as well quit what I'm doing and no longer analyze the game. So
right.
Buffalo's passing game and Buffalo's offense in general has been weird the last 2 weeks. We aren't seeing they were an incredible passing offense last year. The first week they struggled to get on track. Last week, I don't know if it's because they were just destroying them. They seem to run more. I still don't know what Buffalo wants to be.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if you don't grab Knox this weekend, he has another big week. He's going to be the top tight end target.
Yeah, they're
after week 3. So
they're playing Washington. Washington is better in the linebacker and safeties, at least appeared to me, than they are at the outside corners. I feel like this is a potential game where we finally see Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley do what we've thought they were going to do, because the strength of Washington's defense should be the line through the middle. They're weaker on the outer bounds, so that may dictate a little bit. Miami, on the other hand, seem like they're strongest on the outer bounds and a little bit weaker when you come to the core, and maybe that's been dictating the way they played.
All right, so that will do it for us today. Nice, quick, easy episode. Matt and myself will be back again tomorrow. We'll talk about what we got right and what we got wrong in week 4, any updates on news or injuries for the NFL, and then we will preview the Thursday night game, the incredibly sounding Thursday night game between the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans.
I need you to prepare all of your glowing recommendations about Davis Mills, because we know the Davis Mills era is here for 3 weeks because they have no intention of playing Watson, and Tyrod went to IR.
I will bring all of the best analysis that I can on the wildly overrated Davis Mills.